think it's 45 minutes. So if I'll go 20 and then pass it to you for 20, and if I go 15, then I'll pass it to you for 25. If I go 10, you'll have it for 30. And if we let them go 5 minutes early, then you know.
Jesus sakes.
Okay, well, good afternoon. I'm Stacy Smith. I'm with the Department of Education, and this is Dr. Slocum with the Springdale School District. And we have worked days on this presentation, getting prepared, spending lots of time networking, talking. No, actually, Google Docs are wonderful, right? Especially when you have two people who aren't in the same place trying to plan a presentation. So we're in the room to talk about high school graduation pathways. And can we do this in the state of Arkansas? Well, this was what was in the description for this session. And it just makes sense when we talk about in a world where kids can actually be their own avatar, right? And become who they want to be. Why do we want to try to put kids into a single system for everybody to be the same? And has that worked for us? Okay, I recently had kids who have graduated from high school. And you would think as an educator that I would be forward thinking for my kids to talk to them about, what are you doing next? What do you do? Well, I was an elementary teacher. And I didn't always think about those conversations I should be having with my own children. I was the first in my family to ever go to college. And so I really never had anyone having those conversations with me. I just happened to be a really good athlete in high school and got a full scholarship, and my academic advisor said, here are your classes. So I never really even had that modeled for me about talking to kids about what's next in education for you. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? All of these terms, everything from student-focused learning system to personalized learning to competency-based learning to digital learning platforms, okay? Those are little buzzwords you've heard for the past 2 days, right? And if these are things that you're striving to do, then how does one path to graduation fit in with that? Does it or doesn't it? Take a second and talk to the person sitting next to you about, do you think there should be multiple pathways, or do we think that one pathway fits for all kids? Just talk to your shoulder partner real quick. Well, I'm going to venture out there, and I'm going to say that nobody in the room, if I were in Vegas, my bet in the room would be that no one said just one path for all kids. Did anybody say one path? So who would disagree? And again, this was what was written in the description. Why make students wait for graduation? To exercise agency and initiative. If you have a student who has the skills ahead of schedule, why would you make them wait? But do we? Multiple pathways to graduation and anytime, anywhere, student-driven learning helps tomorrow's citizens and leaders develop knowledge, skills, and essential dispositions. Do y'all agree with this? So why isn't this something that we're pushing for? Okay? What keeps us from doing this? What are the barriers that your school faces?
Funding your agency.
Okay, so funding.
Funding if students graduate early.
Okay, funding. My agency, such as, give me specifics.
Well, we've got the seat time requirement for Carnegie unit of credit.
Okay, so seat time requirement, funding, what else? Society, the expectation of this is what we're doing. What else?
Teachers, adults, counselors.
Teachers, okay, that's the thought of this is what we're doing.
We're more teacher-focused or adult-focused sometimes rather than what's best for students. This is a scheduling nightmare.
This is the way
Okay.
we've always done it.
Okay, so again, looking at adult problems instead of student problems, student-focused. What else?
The idea of emotional development and the adolescent development. Are they ready to go? Are they ready for the next step in all the other ways, not just academically?
You're the first person I've heard say that. The emotional aspect of, are kids ready to move on? Especially when we start talking about our high school kids getting graduation credit and graduating with associate's degrees, or are they ready to go into junior level coursework, or students even younger than that getting high school credit. Are they really ready for it? Okay, we talk about those middle school kids. So there are barriers, okay? And there's also mindset changes that really hit on adult problems versus kid problems. Guys, what I'm going to tell you right now is everything that you pretty much said to me, you can either get a waiver for to adjust, or you have to change how the adults in the system control it. All the way from funding to waivers of seat time to how the adults look at the action. Okay? Multiple pathways to graduation is not new. In some states, they have as many as 12 pathways already established at a state level. So multiple pathways to graduation is not something that is just being talked about. So let's talk a little bit about SmartCore. SmartCore in the state of Arkansas is basically our default graduation pathway, right? And it was determined that these were the courses for a student to be college and career ready. That students needed to have 4 years of English, students needed to have 4 years of math, 3 years of science, so on and so forth. So looking at this, looking at our SmartCore pathway, graduation requirements, what barriers do you see there? Barriers? Some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying could be, maybe not. Or somebody would like to say that they could see being a barrier to our kids graduating in multiple pathways.
Based on the SmartCore? Is it necessary?
Is it necessary? I tell you, one of the big conversations when we talk about is it necessary, the difference between SmartCore and core, here lately we've had a huge discussion about students graduating on an IEP versus graduating on transcripts with credit courses. And, you know, as an administrator, I could see the need for the IEP. But as a parent of a student who has a disability, I might not see it the same. I might want my kid to have a transcript. If accommodations, they can do the coursework. And not allow a school to make the decision to just graduate me on an IEP. Another conversation I hear a lot of times, especially within the mathematics, is does every kid need a fourth math class beyond Algebra 2? Okay? A lot of mathematicians, a lot of teachers of math say no. How many of you would say no to that? Okay, so let me ask you this. So for Algebra 2, for a lot of our kids, that's our third math course. And then we do a fourth math course beyond that for credit. And we have that whole conversation of rigor and consistency, and you got to get higher and higher. So what you would want for your child is what we'd want for all kids. Maybe not. What we do know is we definitely want to have courses that we continuing to push our kids in to pick rigorous coursework. What happens a lot of times within our current system of SmartCore, what happens a lot of times with our seniors when they get to their senior year? They've checked off English and one other, and they're done. They put them in classes they don't want to be in, they give us problems. Okay? And then how many of you, they're going into fluff classes? They're not continuing on with rigor, right? Or going on to what their plan is. To me, that's where, when you talk about barriers or things as a state, where we as adults have to figure out how to solve that problem, that's a problem we got to figure out. If we say this is what kids need, then we're either saying kids can be done at this point, or we're saying they need to stay in, but what courses should they be taking? And if kids are going to take easy courses to keep their GPA at a certain level, am I saying you agree? Yeah. What's the point? So there are some barriers there that we have to look at. So let me ask you some things right now. Let's say that you wanted to do a pathway with your students, your high school kids. All right, and you wanted to say this kid, you know, in talking to them, you've had a relationship, you've been doing mentoring, you know that this kid is going into a STEM field. And you started having those conversations at a point in school. I would say 8th grade or before. All right? How would these courses look, even if the requirements were still the same? How would you advise a student as a mentor in which classes to take? So if you had a student who was, let's just say, emphasis on computer science, what would these career focus classes look like? If you had a large enough school, or if you were doing some of the digital stuff, could it even change some of your other classes as far as some of the content delivered? For example, let's look at career and technical certificates with construction. Do you know there are actually schools who give a geometry credit, and it's pretty much a construction class around geometry? Talk about getting a kid's interest. If that was their field and the direction they were heading. How would it change at your school if you were literally having personalized learning plans, student success plans, individual mentoring and conferencing with students early on about their course through graduation? I agree that we've got things as a state that we need to look at, okay, and that we need to look at changing. But what is the impact that could be made immediately in your schools through personalized learning plans or student success plans? For students that are struggling in your schools, you already have them. They're called AIPs. But have we really used them as that? No, we've done mass production, mass printout, right? And we've wrote in what their remediation is going to be, right?
This year they have to be individual and they have to be passed individually. It's
So-
a state requirement.
A new state requirement for AIPs?
Well, I mean, it's a new requirement that they put in a different way on the computer.
So if you're using the ACES system, is that what you're talking about?
I'm not sure what system they're using, but when we have to do our AIPs this year, they can't be mass copied, they can't be mass produced, they have to be individually
Okay.
for our system.
So you've got copy and paste things. So that's within the system that you're using. Okay. So what about if you started looking at graduation pathways for regional needs? What is needed in Northwest Arkansas, is it the same thing that's needed in the Delta? Okay, so when you start talking to businesses and business partners, and you're determining the courses that you're offering at your school and how you can connect those, okay? Guys, so just within the system that we're in right now, if nothing changed tomorrow, I'm telling you, if you started doing this, you would start changing your kids' path to graduation and the courses that they're selecting. If you started having these kind of conversations with them when they were in 8th and 9th grade and 10th grade about what does your course pathway look like all the way through graduation and where are you heading? So flexibility to overcome barriers. Guys, there are 4 different ways right now that you can get waivers. All right? So let's talk a little bit about those. Actually, there's 3 different ways to get waivers. But Act 1280, the Digital Learning Act, allowed schools to start using digital learning to provide more course offerings for their students. So when you go back and you look at that SMART core list, and you go back and you look at what classes your schools can offer face-to-face and what classes they can't, guys, there is a huge list on the Department of Ed website of approved courses throughout the state. There are many vendors on there that are offering courses. You're not limited just by what you can provide in person. So there is the flexibility. Act 1240, district waivers. This is where you file an application with the state. You go before the state board to ask for a waiver. But guys, you have to have a plan. You have to know why you're asking for that waiver. So if it's a waiver for seat time, you have to have a plan when you go to the state board. We're going to use this waiver for seat time. This is how we're going to do it. This is how our students will do their minutes in the classroom. There is an actual plan that goes with that. Act 601, School of Innovation. Okay, how many of you in here have already applied to be a School of Innovation? You're in the process. Several of you. Okay, how many of you are thinking about it? Guys, I want to encourage you to take this walk of School of Innovation. All right. There's been some changes that you will hear about this afternoon. But with the School of Innovation process, it's really talking about pushing the boundaries and pushing your staff to think. If you've not had that shift in your school that we want to do things differently, the beginning walk of School of Innovation and going through that process can help you facilitate and lead that with your staff. All right? Just the fact that you guys are here says you want to look at things differently and you want to be creative and we want to do things differently. And we don't disagree with the statements that were made about where we think students need to go. The fourth area, district conversion charter schools. Okay, that's an application process. Also, it goes before the charter authorizing panel, and then it goes to the State Board of Education. But this is also another avenue that your district can apply for a waiver. Now, you guys did School of Innovation and you did district waivers. And then you were waiting for your School of Innovation. So you actually did both. Who in here, does anybody have a district charter school? Okay, so y'all went through, that's a big process. Very big process. Dr. Slocum here, she's got the expert right now. Her school district actually has a School of Innovation and a district conversion charter school within the same building. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to her right now and let her kind of hit where they are at in this.
I love to hear Ms. Smith talk about that she went on an athletic scholarship. Surprisingly, I did not go on an athletic scholarship to college, and I got kicked out of 2 colleges. So I'm here to tell you that anything really is possible, regardless of funding or aptitude. We're going to re-mic here for just a second. Oh, good. I'm going to open up the battery cover. So we have a misnomer in Northwest Arkansas that everything is perfect and we have no problems. And so I'm going to talk with you about, we talked at lunch, Ms. Whitlow and I talked about poverty and what poverty looks like. And in Springdale, we have a range. So we're averaging about 72% free and reduced lunch. Our highest is 98. Our lowest is in the mid-50s. We serve 42 languages. Most of the languages and students that we serve have never been exposed to electricity. So we are the entry point for a place for them to know about something that they've never seen, some of which they have been advertised and are supposed to think is from witchcraft. So you've got major barriers that you overcome when you have students who have that varied need. So I want to tell you the misnomer of do we have problems and do we have opportunities? And I heard what all of you popcorned out to say, like, we can't do this or we can't do that. You can. It is hard. It is so hard, and it is messy, but you can totally do it. I remember sitting on a plane with Dr. Arola 5 years ago, and we were heading out to go to a CSSO meeting, and we said we were heading to the Innovation Convention, and it was like, one day we're going to have one of these in Arkansas. And so today, the fact that we're doing this is just so like, phew, it's a Google Glass moment for sure. Moore's Law. So Dr. Rollins, we worked on the innovation law. At the time I worked for the Arkansas Department of Education, and so we worked on the laws for that. We worked on 1280 that same year. One thing you should know about 1280 is if you are a public school, you are an approved provider. What? Yes. So that was a cool little thing to add in the law. So you already have the approval to do that. All you have to do is do it. Dr. Rollins talked to me about Moore's Law, and I talked with him about how do we change the achievement gap? How do we begin really changing what is happening in education for Springdale students? And I talked with him about this premise, and he said, "What are you talking about?" And so, if you're not familiar with all, he talks about this idea of Moore's Law, which pretty much says the things that you can read for yourself, saying that by 2020, you're going to be able to purchase chips that are for about a penny, meaning that computers are now right now, if you look around the room, computers are everywhere. Everybody hold up your smartphone or your smart device, right? You've got a laptop, a something, or whatever. We all have it. We're about to be in the world of computers being nowhere. So they'll be in contacts, they'll be in implants, they'll be in different parts of our bodies, all of which we carry with us all the time. You forget someone's face, you ask for the recall, there it is. Oh, hey, Sam, good to see you. Just kidding. And so millions of chips are going to be scattered across the world. And what that tells us is, why is education so hard now versus how it was 20 years ago? Education is hard now because we know more. We have access to more. My mother says all the time, I don't think there's been a day that I've gone by a flagpole and haven't seen a flag flown half staff. Why? Because we have more access to know of the tragedies to be able to lower the flags to half staff. So awareness is part of the key, and that's what Moore's Law says. Why is it harder, and why do we have to do more? Because of what Moore's Law says. So Mikhail Kaku, if you're not familiar with him, he's awesome. He's a major physicist, and he's super cool. He talks about 4 waves. You can see the first wave, steam power, locomotive. Then we moved into the second wave, which is electrical and automotive. Then we moved into high tech, and high tech is where we're living right now. And he is predicting that the 4th wave is this digitalization of industries. Telecommunications, nanotech, AI, all of this world that we're entering. The one that he says that has the highest propensity to not be digitized is teaching. And so why is that? Because we need that mentor or that person to help us know, the guide on the side, to tell us what that does or doesn't look like. So if you're not familiar with his work, he's got super good stuff to share. So Dr. Rollins said, fix it, Megan. And I said, no problem, I'm going to fix it. He said, well, how do you want to fix it? And I said, well, first we need to apply to be a school of innovation. And he said, well, what does that look like? And so if anyone has ever met or knows Dr. Rollins, change he likes, but he likes it in very small doses that's very controlled and contained. And so when I said, we don't know what it's going to look like, he's like, oh gosh, the penguin that Buddy had up for us, yes. And so Dr. Rollins is not the polar bear. He's right, he's upright, and he's standing. He's a very encompassing figure, but he's like, he wants it planned and he wants the process. So I said, what if we give kids autonomy, and what if we give teachers autonomy to be able to kind of decide what this looks like? And he said, great, you have no money. You can do whatever you want to do, but I'm not giving you any money. So one of the solutions was we had to go to one-to-one. So we got a grant, which was great. We put some district money finally toward one-to-one, and we are now a one-to-one district. So we have a little over 23,000 students. 10,500 of those students are English, non-English speakers of some type, from some background, from some country, and everyone has a computer. And why is that? Because we're levelizing the playing field. Are computers absolutely necessary to do this work? No, but it's a tool. It's a piece. So we also had to look at on-demand learning. How do students have access? They have access anywhere, anytime, any place. It's in their form and in their style. And so the other question we had to ask ourselves is, who are we? What are we about? What do we represent? And what does that look like? And to do that, the uncomfortable part of that, the messy part of that, is you have to be willing to have that reflective moment. And when we looked back at our system as a whole, we have 31 schools. And if you looked at our 31 schools, you would have known we have 31 independent school districts in Springdale, Arkansas. They all had autonomy and were moving in completely different directions. And you say like, so that's awesome. That's so great. Everybody needs their own personalized school district, right? And yes, in some respects, but in no in others. Our highly mobile rate, I used to be a superintendent in a smaller school district, and our highly mobile rate, we played the game of they would get mad at us and they would leave and go to another school district. They'd get mad at them and come back to us. And we'd do this ping pong match with some kids all year long. In Springdale, we ping pong themselves. So they get mad at this school and they go to that school. They get mad at that school and they go to this school. And so we constantly have kids who may spend 3 days, 5, they may spend 8, they may spend a month in a particular school. But when you have a highly mobile rate happening in your own framework and structure, and you're not controlling the message of what is the content they have access to, that's very dangerous. And when you're trying to say, what are we impacting or not impacting based on what those scores tell us from the state level, it's like it's not much. I'm just curious, based on, Commissioner Key gave us a little quiz at lunch. Did anybody list state assessments as the thing they look to change instruction? I'm just curious, because I didn't either. I listed interim assessments. We've used a consistent interim measure all the way across. And so it's so funny that we as educators have that view, but the public as a whole doesn't. On the other hand, from the viewpoint of ADE and the viewpoint of the legislature tells ADE you must have a state assessment. USDOE says you must have a state assessment. So ADE is caught in this awkward position of saying, we got to have a state assessment, boys and girls. Here we go. And so we've got to have something. So one of the measures that we look at is, what does our community say? What do our kids say? And more importantly, what does that need to look like to make sure that we're giving kids the best thing that they can access? So the question of who we are is big. It's encompassing. And I see some folks here from Pulaski County Special School District. They came and visited us last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. It feels like yesterday, but I don't think it was. But in the world of change and the world of processing that change, it is a big ask to ask people to change how they're doing things. It's very, 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 very personal. So I know we don't have a ton of paper in the room, but if you have a piece of paper in the room, if you could just get it out. Oh, look at Dr. Gocher. He's getting out a piece of paper. That's awesome. Very good. So if you've got a piece of paper, that's awesome. Everybody try to look around, try to find it. This is like a hunt. Anybody have a piece of paper? Oh, look at her. She's sharing paper. We're passing paper. This is so exciting. Paper! It's like a notepad. There's excitement and a buzz. Yeah. Wood. So pass around a piece of paper. It doesn't need to be attached to anything. It needs to be like free paper. Yeah. This is so exciting. If you have a piece of paper and you could share it with your neighbor, you could tear the wood in half. It's also exciting. Great. Leather-bound people are like, oh my gosh, I cannot tear anything out of this notebook. I got it for free from a vendor. I can't do it. You just can't do it. You can't bring yourself to do it. So no comments, Pulaski County, because you already know what I'm going to say. So everybody have a piece of paper, wave it in the air like you just don't care. Yeah. Okay, so some of you do, some of you don't. If you have a big piece of paper, you should share with a friend. So I want you to think about you're at home. Just close your eyes. Let's all go home for a second. You go into your bathroom, and inside your bathroom, he's like, I'm not closing my eyes. You go into your bathroom, and inside your bathroom, you pull out a towel. A bath towel. Okay? Now you can open your eyes. I want you to fold that piece of paper like your towel is folded. I'm saying the word towel, T-O-W-E-L. I'm from Arkansas County, and we tend to say towel a lot, which is not T-A-O. Towel. Fold your piece of paper like you fold your bath towel. Yes, ma'am. Even better. Perfect. So yours would be flat, right? Okay, so everybody look to your left and then look to your right and notice how their bath towels are folded versus how your bath towel is folded. Very exciting news. So I want to bring your attention to something really awesome. So 2 things. One, she just said, can you repeat yours like super loud?
I don't fold it, I just hang it on the back of the door.
Okay, so her piece of paper is straight because she hangs it on the back of the door. And you said, you made a comment to one of them, you said your towel is...
Wrong.
Say it.
Wrong.
He said, say it loud, real loud.
It's wrong. According to my wife.
Okay. So, did everybody hear him? That's key. He said your towel is wrong. So, in the great scheme of things, you look around the room. We have rollers, we have thirders, we have hangers, we have fourthers. We've got everything, right? But in real life, it isn't wrong. It's just different. So different isn't necessarily bad. It's just different. The reason that we fold our towels in different ways, he folds his towel like his because, who says so?
My mama told me to.
My mama told me to.
I was a little boy.
When he was a little boy. Anybody else? Anybody else?
I roll mine because they go in a basket.
Hers go in a basket, so they must be rolled. Anybody else have a reason why their towels are the way they are?
I have a very narrow cabinet, so I have to fold mine in thirds.
So your cabinet dictates your size. Dr. Gocher?
Because of my cabinet space.
Cabinet space. So sometimes we have mores about who we are, and things have developed for who we are, not because of the things that have happened to us, but it's the confirmation of what we have to do. To conform to fit in the cabinet, to ensure we fit in the basket, to make sure that towel is dry after we hang it, because my mama will whip my butt if I don't. Whatever the reasons are, we have different ways that we do things. And we have to remember that our bias, when we are working with students or we're working with parents or we're dealing with different cultures, truly, truly makes a difference on how we implement and do different things. And that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. So having that conversation of different in Springdale looked a lot like this, right? So a lot of consternation, and that's okay. It's going to be messy, it's going to be dirty, it's not going to look great. But the thing that happens on the other side after you have that moment of storm then becomes part of what that norm is, right? So 2 solutions for us in Springdale. We started as a school of innovation. We're the first school district in the state of Arkansas that's a school of innovation and now is also a district conversion charter. The reason we had to go forward with the district conversion charter is we needed the additional component of GT. Education is for everybody, not for a specific group or not for a specific subset based on one specific test. We think that everybody needs access to gifted instruction. Personalization is another thing that we have worked immensely on, finding those multiple pathways that we've talked about and finding different ways to access it. And it truly is, you have some of the best allies that we have in the country working for you at the Arkansas Department of Education. If you will pick up the phone and you will say, look, I've got a kid and they need to do this, and I'm thinking that I'm going to try this. Will you help me? The answer, I will say, 9 times out of 10 when I call to ask that question is always sure. We can do that. And every time it happens, I'm always like a little bit floored because I have been brought to through the world of ADE being an adversary and not a help. But ADE is there to help you. The whole unit, the whole construct, the whole mindset, I would say, of Dr. Gosher and of Commissioner Key is how do we help students and what does that need to look like? So the fact that, number 1, we're having a conference, which is like awesome, but number 2, that our keynote is our Commissioner of Education tells you a lot. We have a solution, and the solutions are within us. We just have to be willing to reach out to find out what those solutions are. Executive skills. When we asked our folks, what do you need and what does that need to look like, we went to, we have some big gun runners in our area in terms of industry and good things, and some super smart people at the U of A. And we said, like, when you get a kid and they are coming for a job, what does it look like when they come into an interview? The Walmart executive said, you know what makes me so mad? When they come into the interview and they've got their earbuds in their ears. Like, who knew? So, like, by the way, number 1, boys and girls, don't walk in with your earbuds in your ears. So the small things, like have a big thing, and everybody's like, mm-hmm. So executive skills, what do those need to look like? So don't wear earbuds. When you introduce yourself, make eye contact. How do you shake a hand? Nice to meet you. Good to see you. All of these things, when we talk to these executives, and we were thinking that they were going to come in with like something really big. He was like, you know, it really irks me when they have earbuds. And I was like, oh, like, we don't teach that. And they're always in their ears, and I'm guilty of that myself. So AirPods is a lesson from that. Kidding. Awareness. We want our students to have awareness. We want our students to be able to know what they have access to. what they need to have access to, and what are they not tapping into yet. And that is our job, is to ensure that we are telling them those things. Lots of our kids, particularly where I am, don't have moms, dads, or grandparents. They're freewheeling it. And we have to be that for them. We have to clothe them and feed them and medicate them, educate them, and all of those good things. Problem solvers. The number one thing Tyson told us is we need problem solvers. Analytical decision makers who can think for themselves and know how to think to problem solve. The thing that we've heard from both companies that are our big pieces are J.B. Hunt, Tyson, Walmart, that group, conglomerate, they need people who can speak multiple languages, who know how to do that. And do it correctly. And then the other top thing we heard is multiple dispositions, meaning, when you're with different groups. So like at church, I'm a little less gregarious. Like I pass the offering plate and I don't take any money out of it. Like those kinds of things, like kids need to be taught those different components and parts. So how do you act in the component and the structure where you are? And then when is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate? So knowing that break and that acceleration, big deal. Which led us to competency-based learning, meaning that because my bottom has sat in this awesome chair for 138 minutes doesn't mean that I know Algebra 1. I might know Algebra 1 before you start, and I can show you that in a post-test. I might know Algebra 1 in a year and a half. It just depends on me, right? So I am the driver of what that looks like. So student voice, student choice, and student advocacy are three components for competency-based education. And it is extremely hard, I will tell you, in the world of e-school and in our traditional sense to live in that box or to fold our towel a different way. So what we do in Springdale is we fold the towel like the kid wants to fold it, and then we refold it to fit into e-school, which is very, very time-consuming and very laborious. But my best friend, Dr. Eric Saunders, is super patient with us as we try to figure out what this is. And it informs his work to know what are the tweaks and the changes that have to come from that. So we want to know from you, what questions do you have of us? We want to make sure that we've made efficient use of your time and that you don't miss the Google Glass drawing, which I've advocated to be put back in the drawing. But we'll see. So questions?
I have one. You
Okay.
talked about the coherence across the district. You had all these different.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
How do you have more coherence but still inspire that innovation and all of that?
Okay, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to take you to this website. So we've worked on curriculum. And this curriculum is open to you, and it's free to you, and you can have it, and you can steal it, and you can do anything you want to with it. Oh, look at me capitalizing letters like a champ. So when you go on our website, you go to www.sdale.org, right? Which seems it's fancy. There's no ring in it. And you click in the upper right corner on curriculum. And when you click on curriculum, that's going to take you to this happy place called curriculum. And it's also going to give you some resources. And what you're going to find in here is we've spent 3 years writing units, developing units, and different components and activities that go along with this. But I'm going to show you something that is not to scare you, but just to say like, hey, by the way, this is there. So each bubble, literacy, math, science, social studies, blah, blah, blah. You click on it. We started with literacy and math. We're bringing science and social studies on board because those have to align with NGSS and all the other fun stuff. But what you're going to see here is units that are broken into different quarters. 4 units, right? There's a year at a glance, which is the little binocular at the end, which kind of zooms in. And then you can click on a quarter. So this is 8th grade, 2nd quarter, and this is just supposed to be fun. And so these are all based on DOK levels, depth of knowledge levels. These are all based on understanding by design. So there's stage results that are listed. There's 3 stages it takes you through, which are the desired results, and then there are different components added into each of those. So what you end up getting is like, what am I teaching? How do I know? And stage 1 tells you, I'm going to see if I can zoom this little sucker in. Yay, look at me. I'm going to be in computers. And then we have built-in scaffolding. So for ELP students who need proficiency standards, for students with special needs, any of those things, what you're going to see on here is there's a little trademark at the bottom. So the trademark is not for you to not take. The trademark is there to keep industry people from getting our stuff and trying to sell it back to us. It's just a protection for us. But you can do Control F, which is find, and you can do the word Springdale, and you can insert your district and erase all of ours, and it can be yours. So you can go through, and as you look at the second part, tweak whatever you want, take whatever you want, throw away whatever you want. It gives you essential questions. It gives you understandings. It also says like, hey, what in the heck can I do after I finish the unit? And it says students are going to be able to do these things. 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. Then it takes you on down and it takes you to stage 2, which is evidence. At the top of these, you're going to see little video cameras. We've embedded YouTube videos. Those take you out to our YouTube page, which is a teacher talking to a teacher about what they were thinking when they were writing this, right? Because you never get the author's sense of purpose. And they're just like, hey, this is what's going on in this particular thing or this particular point. So she'll talk to you, blah, blah, blah.
That is included.
It is included. And so you go through, it also gives rubrics. So teachers say like, I've got so much stuff and I don't have time to look on the internet. Right. So they can go and they can click on a 2-column chart. If they don't have one of those, there you go, we've made you one. If they don't have the different components of, let's say, I don't have a rubric for a presentation. We say, okay, there you go, there is one. We give you everything you need to fish and get. So if you are a teacher walking out of a brand new classroom and you've never taught before and you don't know what to do, this is your paint by numbers kit for what do you do. So what you're going to find in here is we had a ton of pushback. Like teachers were like, oh, you're not posting that on the web. And so what I found from working at the Department of Education is lots of people have curriculum, lots of people don't have any curriculum, and lots of people that have curriculum lock it down and password protect it, right? So it's not password protected, it's not locked. Are you going to find misspelled words? Yeah. Are you going to find lots of errors? Absolutely. It's not perfect. But if I wait for the moment to come when I say, this is perfect, you may now see it, the day will never come because we're always revising. Every single day we're in these documents and we're making changes all the time. So when you look at it and you have feedback for us and you say like, oh my gosh, this is the worst idea ever, send it to me. We take that feedback and then we try to make changes from that. But what I can tell you what has happened is it's become this little cadre of like honey. And so people will say, like this guy yesterday from New Zealand said, by the way, have you looked at da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, no. And so section 3, unit 9, 9th grade, we went in and we made changes based on what that looks like. So it's a live document. It's a living conversation. And it's some of the coolest, like nerdiest stuff. A curriculum person, it's like, oh, it's so good. So it's not perfect though. So we take your feedback and all of the fun stuff. The other thing that we've done is we built this really cool building, and I'm being mindful of your time. It is called the School of Innovation, and we would love to welcome you to come and see it. And I'll put up their website. I don't think we have any awesome pictures yet, but you're welcome to come and visit. We'll give you a tour. We'll take you around. We'll talk to you about what you see, how you see it, all of those good things. But yeah, other questions? Yes.
Megan, in life you get Springdale kids moving up, right?
Yay!
You get some of ours too, but I'm concerned about that we don't share these personalized plans.
Right.
Tons of your kids, like they're out their transcript off the Triam, but if there's a plan, then why aren't people sharing it?
Well, meaning in what sense?
I don't know. That's just it. Is there maybe a discussion we had that if some of our schools across the state are using
Oh, meaning like we need a warehouse place for this to live? Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
They're starting over.
Yeah, that's a great.
Or there's a plan.
Yeah, which goes back to AIPs.
And that's something that within a system that the department is building, they're trying to add those components where people can build individualized personal plans in there that transfer with the student. You never see where everyone goes together. So just like with the AIP system, if that student moves and goes to another school, the data in that AIP, if that school chooses to use that system, is in there. But it's all about whether schools choose to use it. That's an extra system that schools can choose to use or not to use. People don't have to use that system for their AIP. You know, up until this last year, a lot of people used TLI. You know, and so it's just about what districts are choosing to do as far as developing that. But the Department of Ed is trying to build some kind of tool so that you can have a personalized plan. And yesterday, the morning speaker, or afternoon, he was on fire. When I get to go to school, and I see schools doing something a little bit different, they didn't wait on someone else. And they didn't wait necessarily on an exact waiver. Most innovative ideas don't require a waiver. They don't. Seat time, I think in high school, that probably is one. But a lot of your innovative practices and getting down to an individual student is about changing the practices within the school. So I want to encourage you guys to walk out this door and say, you know what, I'm going to be an agent of change in my building. And I'm going to be on fire about what I do. Megan, you were super exciting to listen to, and I enjoyed presenting with you today. Give Megan and Springdale a hand. They did a great job.
Thank you. Google Glass.
So you had the, you already put it in there, didn't you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.